further us.
Some men think they're untouchable.
They call me the White Geronimo.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
That was the weirdest encounter. He's like, I will bite your finger off.
In this video series, we showcase 5 cases of men who demanded special treatment and tried to intimidate law enforcers. On November 12th, 2022, Reno Police responded to a domestic disturbance involving 45-year-old veteran Christopher Sheahan. His disruptive behavior stressed the apartment complex's residents. Watch how police handled a very disturbed and entitled man who thinks he is above the law.
Looks like they're just open. Hey Chris, Reno PD, what's going on, man?
I got no guns.
Okay.
Who are you?
I'm with the Reno Police Department. I work with your brother.
Get your hand off the weapon right there, mother. I got my hands right here.
No,
Take your hat off. You. You.
Chris.
You.
Chris, what is going on, man?
Coming out there.
Alright, who's
Talk
coming
to you
on?
guys.
Restricted for emergency traffic calming through the unit. How much alignment?
Where's my brother? I need a hug, man. Don't.
Where is your brother? I don't know. We've been trying to get a hold of him.
Can I get a hold of my brother?
We tried to get a hold of him. He's not answering right now, Chris.
My name is Christopher Sheahan. You guys 2020. You guys didn't pay me any money.
Chris.
My right shoulder.
We know, bud.
Chris, what is going on?
We're not here to
Jesus.
hurt you.
What's going on today, Chris?
Let me do some pull-ups. Get the out of my way. Move away. All of you. All of you move the away. Back the up.
Chris.
And if you do the
Chris.
shit to the back,
You gotta tase this.
you gonna tase me? I'm in my own apartment.
Chris,
Stop it.
you got a bunch of your
What do you
neighbors
guys
are
want me to
calling.
do? You guys trying to take me to jail?
As officers tried to calm him, he grew more agitated, challenging their authority. Despite his verbal abuse and inconsistent statements, they tried to understand his state of mind.
I'm gonna walk to the hospital with my dog now. Get the out of here. All of you now.
Chris, what is going on today, man?
If I ask you guys nicely, I'm gonna tell you guys right now. Whoever could go toe to toe with me, head to head, push up to push up, let's get it. Going facing the west right here.
You're yoked, bud.
Facing that. I'm not saying I'm yoked. Okay? Back up and stay. Are you scared? You're scared. You're scared. Are you scared or not? Be honest.
I'm not scared of you, dude. There's
I know you're not scared of me. I'm scared of me. I fear one man. And his name is, do you want to know what his name is? Can I do a push-up? You guys want in the back?
We're not, Chris.
You promise me? Listen, I'm a man.
Chris, you remember
I'm
me?
a man, right? I'm a man.
Chris, you remember me? We talked at Sports West.
What's your name?
It's Goodrich.
Goodrich. What's your last first name? First name?
It's Elliot.
Elliot what?
Elliot Goodrich.
When's your birthday?
Well, Chris, it's in February.
What's your number of your birthday?
Chris, what's going on tonight?
I'm doing 14.
Chris,
My
what-
brother's February 14th, 1979.
Okay. Yeah, I know your brother. I know
What?
Monique as well.
Dude, shut the up.
Chris, what's going on?
Shut the up!
Why are we out here tonight?
Because I want you to shut the up.
Why do you keep yelling?
Shut your mouth, please.
Chris.
Put your taser down and shut your mouth. I see your taser right there.
I know, because you got me amped up right now, Chris.
All your weapons, I see them right here.
Chris.
I got you amped up because you guys are soft. Every one of you out here is soft.
Okay.
Every single one of you, especially that guy right there.
While talking to him, he suddenly directed his anger at another officer, growing more agitated. Officers noted his paranoia and kept a safe distance, trying to de-escalate the situation.
They think he's some kind of cowboy over there. I see you, dude.
I'm not hard.
Who you think you're hard?
Chris.
You think you're hard, motherfucker? Think you're standing there hard?
Stop, my friend.
You didn't me because you think I think I'm better than you.
I was there when that happened, my friend. Do you
Shut
want
the
to
up!
Okay.
You weren't there!
Yes, I was.
Did you come up and hit me in the chest, man?
No,
You're okay?
I tried to
Did you come up and hit me in the abs, man? You're good?
Chris, can we
Did you
fix-
do that?
Chris, can
Did you
listen?
say I love you, bro? Did you say that to me?
Chris.
Was my brother there?
Hey, Chris. Can we get you some help, my friend?
I already got him. What's up?
Chris.
You shoot my boy Mike
Chris,
here.
stop.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
Why
times.
don't-
You gonna me? I got no weapons. What else
Chris.
you want to see? You want to see the song?
Chris.
Want to see the Sheehan song, dude? All of you real?
Chris.
You guys think you're hard? Navy SEALs are hard. David Goggins, Jocko Willink, Jocko, run this country. David Goggins, run this country. Tom Milliken, You guys know who Community is? You know who Marcus Luttrell is?
Chris.
You guys know who they are? I bet you read their books. You guys think they're hard? I'm hard. I'm hard as Tell me, did it? Shins, baby. Shins. 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 4-4-4-4-4. Get the back now. Go read your Bible. Shut the
Nope, stop, boss. Chris, can you stop and listen? We need to get you help. You know
I'm gonna
you
go
need
get me
help.
help. Don't
No,
stop.
stop with us.
Don't
No, Chris.
Please don't. I'm going to get my own help. Stop!
We're gonna stop. We need
I'm
to
going
get
to
you
put a
help.
shirt on, and I'm
Chris,
going to get my own
stop.
help. Don't in the back.
Hey,
Don't me in the back, Reno PD. Don't arrest me.
We're
Don't
going-
touch me.
we're gonna get you to-
I have broken no laws. Shut the up.
The situation became chaotic as the suspect refused to cooperate and continued his verbal assault. Noting his volatility, officers arrested him, which made him more unstable.
Let me be quiet. Let me be quiet and go in my own house that I earned with my blood, my sweat, and my tears.
I understand.
Shut the up.
We're gonna get you some help.
I'm
okay?
going to go get some right now.
We're gonna get you to.
I'm going to go get shut the up. I'm walking.
No,
Ah!
you need to stop, my friend. I'm here to help you. We're trying to help you.
You will not put your hands on me. You guys will not touch
Chris.
me. You especially, you're all weak.
Okay, Chris.
Think I'm on? Think I'm cranked out? Wood. Can I pray, guys?
Chris.
Can I pray?
No.
I can't pray.
Stop. We need to go and get you some
Okay,
help.
I'm going. You don't touch me. I'm going in my window.
No, we're not going to
I'm
the
going to
house.
my apartment. That it's my dog's in there.
Stop.
My dog's in there.
Let's go.
All right, take me to jail.
Thank you.
We're taking me to jail for it.
We're taking you to the hospital.
You guys take me to the
Take you to the
hospital.
hospital.
Relax. My dog.
Relax.
Guys.
We're working on it.
So why does it take so many of you guys?
Because you're amped up.
No, I'm not amped up. Okay, leave me alone, please.
We're not here to hurt you, bud.
We want to take you to the hospital.
You're not taking me to jail. Pull up my pants. Somebody pull up my pants. Pull up my pants, mother.
We'll get your
You pull up my pants. You pull up my pants.
Chris, stop.
Pull up my pants right now. Pull up my pants. Pull up my pants.
You got your keys so we can close up?
I don't even have my keys on me.
Okay,
leave me the alone.
Make sure that it's closed.
His behavior remained combative, demanding to return home. Informed that he'd be taken to a medical facility, his erratic behavior continued to challenge the police.
Let me touch my dog if you're going to help me. Let me touch my dog if you're trying to help me, mother. You got me, my mother. My dog's inside my apartment. Let me go in my apartment, mother. Let me go in my apartment. Please, I don't have weapons, guys. I don't have anything to hurt anybody. Please leave me the alone. I haven't broken any laws. Let me go to the VA hospital. Let me call my buddy Doug Goddard to come and take me to the VA hospital. I need to go. Leave me the alone. Please don't cuff me. I didn't break any laws. I will calm down. I'll take a knee. Can I take a knee? Can I please take a knee, guys? Take a knee.
Take a knee.
All right, now I'm calm. Can you guys please let me go to the hospital now?
That's where we're going now.
Okay. Somebody video this, please. Somebody video this. Reno, help! Reno PD. You get out of my. Where's my dog? Where's Remy? Where's Remy? Where's Remy? Where's Remy, my dog? Give me my dog. Pull my pants up, you mother. Ah, I'm sorry for calling names.
Okay, can you stop?
Sorry for calling names.
Chris, we're just trying to get you help, my
I
friend.
just want to get my dog. Get the out of my apartment, you. That is my place.
Agreed. Chris, ambulance right there, my friend.
Where's my dog? Where's my dog?
It's in the house.
Where's my dude? Let me close up my stuff.
They just did
My
that.
window's wide open. You guys went in. You're smoking a cigarette. Let me have my dog. Let me have my dog, Remy.
Ambulance right there. What kind of dog you got, my friend? Right there.
You go.
Okay.
No, you go.
Go. Chris, come on, man.
What am I doing wrong? Am I breaking a law?
Yes.
How?
You're being too loud. You piss all your neighbors off by screaming.
Okay, I'm sorry.
During transport, he sought attention and made whimsical statements about his future. An officer's kind gesture eventually calmed him.
So when can I go back in? Because I've broken no laws. I've done nothing wrong except for yell. And I was shut the up. And I just asked you guys to leave me alone so I could do push-ups. You guys won't leave me alone. Don't look through my Do I go in your house and look through your Okay, well maybe I will.
Close the window, lock it.
I won't let it go, man. You guys are gonna arrest me, aren't you? You're gonna throw a charge or disturbing the peace or something like that. Most likely, yeah.
Tonight. Christopher tonight.
You're gonna take me to jail?
Misdemeanor crime.
Yep, I knew you would. I knew you would. Can you push my elbow back a little bit?
Back like this?
Yeah, that way, yeah, keep going.
Say when.
Keep going. Yeah, keep going. Just go, dude. Send it, full send.
I'm not gonna go too hard. I don't want to hurt you, man.
Do as hard as you can, bro.
I know, but I don't want to hurt your joints or nothing.
I need it to break. I need it to pop.
Doctors are chiropractors, so we'll let them figure that out.
Yeah.
Better?
Yeah, Reno.
There you go.
Thank you for me, man. That was the best thing you ever did to me.
Noticing his back injuries, paramedics listened as he boasted about becoming a professional athlete. This calm demeanor made him more cooperative.
Did you fall at all or anything, Chris? Looks like you have a little scrape on your back here.
Yeah.
You fell?
I did a back roll.
Oh, okay. Did you hit your head at all?
No, I just did it on purpose because I'm just practicing. I'm gonna walk on at UNR for football.
All right.
I've been training for it. Yeah, thanks. Hey, I need a f***ing blanket. Did it. Sorry. I cracked the whip though.
We can grab you a blanket.
Yeah, I can get that.
No, I don't need one.
I got one right here ready for you.
Yeah, I got it right here, man.
I don't need it.
All right,
They call me the White Geronimo.
the white Geronimo. What position do you want to play in football?
Running back, 34. I want to go get tattooed right now on my chest, a big heart right on my chest, and 34 right underneath it on my ribs, right next to the Fighting Irish. There's somewhere, I'm just visualizing.
What's the 34 stand for, my man?
Who's the best running back ever to play football in the history of the NFL?
Who's that? Peyton?
Yeah, buddy!
Okay.
While being loaded into the ambulance, he complained about his handcuffs. The team adjusted them for his comfort during transport.
Pull up on my right arm. You're real strong. Yeah, pull up. Come on, good strong guy. Have a good day. We'll get you down there. We'll get you some help. Okay? Go to the VA. We're going to get you some help and go from there.
You want to just keep your legs up here for me, my man? No, Chris. Can't pull your...
Can you guys please get the cuffs off now? They're hurting my shoulder, bro. Can you put them in the front? Can you put them
in the front.
What's that?
I can put them back behind you, but I can't put them in the front.
Sounds like take me to jail like this. I don't care. Go ahead. You guys take me to the hospital. I'll go to the hospital, I guess. Can I please have the cuffs off? Or can you guys redo the cuffs? Stand me up and then redo the cuffs so it'd be comfortable at least?
You can put them back behind you.
Okay, cool.
You gonna be all right with me, Chris?
Absolutely, bro. I promise.
Swing off to the side over this way.
And here's your phone right here in between your legs.
Put it right on my... Put my phone on my big old... Please.
Alright, this is...
Right. Can somebody put on the song on my phone? It's called Geronimo. I don't know, but it's awesome. It'll get you going, guys. It'll get you woken up in the morning. And it'll also warm you up when it's nice and toasty warm in the cool. Woo! Top of the morning to you.
As Sheahan was transported to the hospital, officers took statements from his neighbors. Here's what they had to say about their lively neighbor.
Somebody please pour a cold cup of water right on my nuts.
The only thing I need to do here is for
Reno
maintenance to
PD.
make sure it's locked up.
Does he have history of just not being stable, unfortunately?
Yeah, so he's a veteran. I don't know what service he was in. Was he? And he suffered some sort of a brain injury.
Yeah.
And then that mixed with the steroids doesn't really help anything. So.
Seeing as it was just Veterans Day,
Yeah.
I don't know if that triggered him.
That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I'm sure it has
Okay.
something to do with it, but when we were looking for his phone right now, we found some drugs, so that definitely doesn't help. So
Yeah, no.
there's a whole lot of demons that he's dealing with right now, unfortunately.
An officer recounted past interactions with the suspect. After medical clearance, police took him into custody. He remained defiant, expressing frustration while intermittently apologizing.
Well, yeah, but this guy is big dude.
Yeah, well, all weighted out.
Yeah. We're trying.
Last time I dealt with him, he was using he was using roids in combination to power through those extra workouts. But
Well, now we got roids in. So that's nice.
Well, I'm probably using the down from the mat.
For roids.
But,
I'm just trying to get home to my family. I'm cold. I'm out here with no shirt on.
Okay.
And
We'll
Sean
get you in the car
Gibson's
so you
going to
get warmed
watch
up.
me
Go get her the warm
go
up,
to
okay?
jail when I could go home and be comfortable and be a healthy veteran.
Okay.
If I went home
Let's go to
and
the car,
slept
get you
with
warmed
my
up.
dog.
Okay.
But you're going to make me go to jail because I was yelling.
Tonight.
How many days did you give me until you're going to take my job from me too, Sean Gibson? Give me my shirt. Give me my shirt. Don't touch my. Give me my shirt. You, Sean.
Okay.
Have a seat.
I was speaking to my brother, Sean. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, Sean. I'm angry with you because you're making this decision. I can
understand.
tell you're the sergeant.
You can be angry at me.
But why are you taking me to jail, dude?
Because that's
I
our
went to
solution
get
for
help.
tonight.
No, the solution tonight is get help here or have me sleep it off.
They've already cleared you out. So we're going to go up there, and then you can work on getting help further from there. All right? There's people up there that'll help you as well.
Dude, shut the up.
Okay.
I'm
Get
sorry
in the
I
car.
said that. I'm just angry you're taking me to jail. Because I just want to eat,
I don't
man.
take any personal offense,
But
man.
why are you guys taking me to jail when I need help?
We're trying to get you that help.
My
This is the
meds
start.
are at home.
I understand that.
But you're going to put me in jail where I got to fight? You guys want me to fight in jail?
No.
Yeah, you do, because you haven't been in there. You don't even know what it's like in there. You have no clue. But you think you're hard, dude, with your little freaking goatee.
Oh, I don't think I'm hard, man. I know I'm not hard.
Me neither. I don't think I am either. I just want to go home.
Hey, Chris, what we can do is we can try to...
Can you guys just issue me a ticket like you did after you me and let me go home? I promise to be calm.
Can you have a seat?
I promise to be calm, guys.
All right, I appreciate it.
At the police station, his behavior shifted from cooperative to headstrong. Despite this, officers remained professional and addressed his needs.
All right, Chris, let's get you out of this, man. I'm sorry. Do you want me to grab your phone for you? I know you're touchy about your stuff. Got it? Okay.
Can you grab my shirt for me?
Yeah, I'll grab it. I'll grab it from the other side. That way we're not getting it all.
It's okay.
I don't trust you guys to get our shit.
Okay.
I'll get it.
Hey,
Well, let him grab it. If he wants to grab it, grab it. Go ahead.
Thanks, guys. I'm all over
I've been
myself.
respectful towards you this entire time. You know I'll grab your shit.
Don't touch my sword like that. I'm the man. I'm the man.
You're the man, Chris.
No problem. I'll get this.
I'm not trying to be aggressive.
I get it.
I know who the I am.
I got it.
I'm doing something. Don't grab me.
Okay, okay. I just don't want
Touch me, dude. You ain't hard, man. There's real hard motherfuckers out in the streets. Like real ones.
I got your phone.
You ever heard of the real ones? I'm a fucking real one. Thank you. Thank you, Father.
All right, Chris, come on. We gotta go in this door over here.
Can somebody put this shirt on for me?
Do you want it like over your shoulders, or how do you want it? Hey, Chris, we need you to sit down, buddy. Okay?
Can I sit right here?
That's fine if you want to sit right there, but we just need you to sit down. Okay?
During processing, he stayed calm and cooperative, engaging staff in friendly exchanges. However, he showed signs of uneasiness while being escorted to jail.
They took me to the VA already. I'm sorry if I was being rude at first. I'm not meaning to. I'm just not happy to be here. Actually, I'm kind of happy. I could lay down. Can I lay down on this pole?
Not right now. I just want to get you back. We just got to research all your stuff. All right?
Why do you have to do search on this stuff?
Why? Because it's the same thing we do that every
But I'm a vet, and I was. So why is there so many officers here? Are you guys scared? What do you with the mustache? Are you scared at all? You scared of anything in the world?
Maybe spiders, but that's about it.
I'm scared of rats, dude. That's the only thing. Filthy rats. Hate them.
Now that you mention it, I
Smell them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't smell your
Oh,
rats in here.
snakes too. Can't forget about snakes.
Yeah, snakes. Stomp them, dude.
Especially rattlesnakes.
Yeah. They bite.
All right, Chris, we're going to walk into the next room. We're going to take your photo real quick, okay?
Yeah.
Give me the second door.
Can I put my shirt? Put my phone.
Yeah, that's right here. That's right here,
Keep
Chris.
my right hand, please.
Right here. There you go.
Hey, what you doing, bro? Why? No, you just grabbed me like try to push me.
He's just trying to escort you, Chris. He's not trying to front you. Do anything.
I'm trying to be relaxed, but you're trying to walk me. I'm pushing. Yeah, you are. You're not strong, bro.
Chris,
What's your name?
Chris, nobody's trying to be out strong. Chris, remember when we talked about the faster you get through the process, the quicker you get out of here?
Christopher Sheahan was taken into custody by the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, charged with resisting arrest and disturbing the peace. He pleaded no contest and was sentenced to 60 days in jail. How did you assess the Reno Police Department's handling of Christopher Sheahan's arrest, given his mental state? Sound off in our comments section now. On November 3rd, 2022, Flagler County deputies investigated an accident involving a Porsche and a traffic control worker. Here's how it all unfolded according to the victim.
What happened?
Yeah.
He's in the oncoming, coming at you. You're in front of him.
Stop.
Like, okay.
He comes to a stop,
Okay.
and then I'm like, all right, bet. So I stop like this to stand in front of him, and then he continues to accelerate into my legs to get me to move out the way, and he's like looking at me like yelling. And that's when I got mad. I was
And
like,
you're yelling at him to stop.
yeah, I'm
You're
like, you
giving
need
him
to
clear.
stop. Yeah, but this dude pushed my legs in with his car. Like
You don't
I,
need any medical.
no. But he hit me like he stepped
the
on the
legs.
gas to get out of his way, and I was like, oh, I didn't mean to, and I was like, no, bro, you, that's not.
So
an
you
accident.
let him know that he hit you.
Yeah, I let him know. I let him know that
oh, I
he hit
didn't
my
mean
legs.
to.
Yeah, and then he drove off. I mean, I have like the whole crew of people that seen it down there because they was all on the equipment, so they watched all of this go down.
Deputies visited Donald Steimel, who initially denied involvement, but later admitted to being the Porsche's driver.
You Donald?
No. Here.
There, Donald that resides here that drives that?
Yes.
Hello, Donald.
Hello. How are you?
Good. I just got some questions for you today. Before I ask the questions, I gotta read you something from this card. I'm Deputy Lane with the Flagler County Sheriff's Office. I'm here investigating an aggravated battery. I have to read you the back of the card now. Okay, with these rights in mind, are you still willing to talk to me?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's in reference to an investigation for an aggravated battery.
Me?
Yes.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, it's a yes or no. Are you still willing to talk to me?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So earlier today, were you driving that Porsche?
I was.
Were you on Camino del Rey with all that construction going on?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Do you mind just telling me what happened with the person directing traffic, if you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I think I do.
Okay.
And they wouldn't allow us to turn left there.
Mm-hmm.
There was there was a lot of commotion. Traffic was going through real fast, and a lot of different things going on.
Mm-hmm.
When I started going down, hoping that I'd get down there and make that left turn, he came running up to me like this, and he ran up to the hood of my car.
Yeah.
And he ran right up to the hood of my car.
Yeah.
And he hit my car. I was stopping at the time. So I walked around to the window, and he says, "What are you trying to run over me?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "No, I'm sorry if you thought that. I was stopping. You ran up to my car."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't hit that person, if that's where you're going with all this. He ran right up to the car and hit the front of the car.
So that it wasn't your intention to hit him?
Of course not.
Okay. Because, I mean, he's claiming that he had you stopped, and then you revved your engine and went into him, and I have two witnesses also corroborating that story.
Other workers there?
Yeah.
He insisted it wasn't intentional and suggested the worker exploited the situation. The officer cited witnesses who supported the worker's statement.
Why would I run over somebody? I mean, that's just somebody maybe is looking, I'm driving a nice car, maybe taking advantage of the situation.
I can see if he just claimed that we had no other witnesses, but I mean the other witnesses' stories were almost exactly the same, and I spoke to them, separately, and they both described the same exact incident, that you came out into oncoming traffic, not listening to them.
It wasn't not listening.
I know, it's not oncoming. No, I know it's not oncoming traffic. It was down to one lane,
yes.
But it was still a lane that you weren't supposed to be in at that time. And they said you were impatient. You came out and then you stopped, and then he's waving you down, told you to stop, and then he's waiting for the other traffic, and then that's when you hit him with the car.
With the confusion going on, the car could have lunged a little bit, but nothing like I gave it the gas and tried to run him over or anything like that.
Okay.
They had a mess up there going on without. In fact, I was surprised the police weren't there with everything that was going on.
After his statement, he stood for identification purposes. The worker confirmed the suspect as the driver, and Steimel was placed under arrest.
If you wouldn't mind with me just standing at the end of the driveway, we're going to have the victim come and drive by and see if he can identify you.
Okay. Claiming he was hurt or something like that?
He's not claiming he was hurt, but he was claiming he was hit by a car. And in the state of Florida, that counts as aggravated battery with a deadly weapon.
When he was there, he was in front of the car. He stopped, so I couldn't go anywhere, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I tried to explain to him, I'm just trying to turn left into this intersection.
I understand, but when somebody in a yellow jacket who's directing traffic around, construction going on, you need to abide by the traffic control devices that they have set up.
There were other cars that were workers in that lane.
Okay. Just stand right there for me, okay? Based on the victim identifying you as driving the Porsche that he photographed, I have probable cause to make an arrest for a aggravated battery.
It's the craziest thing I've ever like he was hit with a car.
Despite disbelief, the deputy explained the charges and arrest process. Due to his compliance, he was handcuffed in the front.
So it's more comfortable while we drive down.
So he's arresting me for some loony that is claiming I hit him with the car.
Oh, this is absurd.
Of course. You know what this is all about.
I can explain everything to you. We'll just do it at my car once he's, secured in my back seat, and I'll let you know. According to, the victim and two other witnesses, he cut out into the oncoming lane, standing in front of the vehicle, and then that's when he revs his engine and drives into him.
That's hard for me to believe because he is a gentleman.
I understand. We're going off of two witnesses and the victim's statements. They're all exactly the same. I had to drive back and forth to different locations where these workers were, and I asked them these questions, separately, and they all gave the same exact story.
Well, maybe they all talked to one another.
They had no idea the police were called. It was actually the victim. He called on his own. It wasn't like a job site. They were like, well, what are you guys here for? They had no idea. So
I just find that really, he would not, he wouldn't. He's the kindest man you've ever met in your life.
Steimel asked to greet his wife on their anniversary. In the cruiser, he asked about his fate, and the deputy explained. At the station, he was booked.
So now what happens?
He's going to be transported down to the Flagler County inmate facility in Bunnell.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
He committed a felony, ma'am. That's why we're doing it the way we're doing it. I don't have any discretion when it comes to making a felony arrest. Yes, sir?
I just wanted to say happy anniversary, honey.
Yeah.
You might want to talk to Greg Virgil.
Okay. Are you going to keep him overnight?
I don't know. It's possible.
It's messed up, but it is what it is.
What happens from here? Obviously, I've never been arrested before.
The jail deputies down there, they'll be able to explain it better to you.
Okay. I don't need any ID or anything because I don't.
No, all of your information is going to be in my arrest report.
Hey, bud.
Donald Steimel was taken into custody by Flagler County Jail. The worker filed a $50,000 damage complaint. Steimel refused settlement, requested a jury trial, and posted $2,500 bail for his felony aggravated battery charge. The court offered him a deferred prosecution agreement requiring courses in anger management and aggressive driving, an apology letter, and fines. By February 2023, Donald Steimel completed the program. Was Steimel too impatient, or was the construction zone genuinely confusing? Sound off in the comments below. On November 4th, 2023, the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office responded to a report of a motorist causing a disturbance with his erratic behavior. When the officer arrived, the suspect was uncooperative and rude. Watch how the deputies handled the entitled motorist.
I'm about to get out the male subject on a motorcycle. Appears to be possible signal 1, revving his engine by Juanas. Hang tight up there. What's going on? Okay, why are you sitting here revving your engine back and forth going in the middle of the road?
I didn't go in the middle. I pulled over and I turned around. That's it.
Okay, I watched you sitting here falling over on the bike trying to get it across the road.
I don't have shoes on, man.
Okay.
That's all.
Do you have an ID on you?
I don't know.
You have no ID. Do you have any? Don't reach in your pockets. Do you have any on you to get you in any trouble?
I don't know weapon, dude.
Oh, you mind if I pat you down real quick? Make sure you go face that way for me. Is this your bike? Here, step over here. You're out of traffic. Down here on vacation or what's going on?
Nope.
What's down here?
I own a place down here too.
Oh, you own a place down here? Okay. So what's going on with you revving your bike?
I can't rev my bike, dude. I have pipes. That's the point.
Okay, but here's the thing. You're down here on the side of the road sitting there screaming, revving your pipe, stop people in traffic.
No.
Then you're coming across the road trying to walk across the road. Okay, but then you're trying to walk across the road with the bike.
No, I wasn't.
You were.
What do you want to do? Fly across the road?
No, but you can't be sitting there going sideways across the road.
You turned as close I could as loud as I could with my
You have no ID on you. Stay tight right here for me. Okay, hang tight right here for me.
Despite the officer's efforts, the suspect resisted, refused commands, and moved around. Warned of detention, the suspect continued arguing and threatened physical harm.
Okay.
I'm standing here.
I understand that. Right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand where the
Okay. Hey.
Are you gonna arrest me?
No, I'm having. Get over here. Get over here. No, I'm trying to make sure you're okay. Now stand over here. No.
I'm right here.
No, right here.
I'm going right here.
Okay, I don't care. You're gonna sit right here.
What you want me to do?
You're gonna sit right here.
Zero say over what I do.
You're gonna sit right here.
I'm not gonna sit right there.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit.
No, you're not. You're gonna hang tight right here.
You're gonna detain me.
124. Can you send me another unit?
Arrest me, let me go. Arrest me.
Over here.
Arrest me, or I'm gonna go this way.
No, over here.
No, you cannot tell me.
You are not free to leave.
No, I'm gonna go that way.
You're not gonna go that way.
Tackle me to the ground then?
No, I'm gonna have you sit over here. I'm trying to be cordial with you. I'm trying to be cordial with you.
No, you're not. Are you gonna touch me?
Yes, I will put hands on you, okay?
Why?
Because you are being detained. Because you're okay. Listen to me.
Shut your mouth.
Listen to me.
That'll be the dumbest thing you ever did.
Listen to me. I'm not going to argue with you. Do not get in my face.
I'm not in your face.
Okay.
Get your finger out of my face.
Do not
bite your finger off.
Do not. You're not. Listen.
I will bite your finger off of your hand.
Okay. Calm down.
Sir,
let me talk.
Out of my face.
Due to his rebellious behavior, the deputy had to use physical force to detain him. Even after warnings of being tased, he continued to struggle and remain defiant.
Get on the ground.
I'm not doing it.
Get on the ground right now.
Really, dude?
Hands on the ground.
For what?
Get on the ground.
Weapon. I have no weapon.
124, give me traffic.
You already checked. I have no.
Get on the ground right now. Put your hands flat on the ground. Get on the ground.
There you go, bud.
Get on the ground right now. You will get tased. Get on the ground. Get on the ground.
What the? What?
Face down.
There you go, bud.
Put your hands behind your back. You will get tased.
What am I getting arrested?
Put your hands behind your back.
What are you arrested?
You are being detained. Put your hands behind your back.
What, dude? I have a back elbow. Please.
Okay, put your other hand behind your back now.
You, dude.
Put your hand behind your back.
You, dude. Why are you doing this? Bro, I
told you to stop.
I did. You approached me, dude. Ow, please, man. Hey, really?
124, one detained.
For what? For what?
Because you're not listening to me.
I don't have to listen.
I told you were detained, so I figured telling us you're walking in traffic.
You said no. Get me the out of this dirt, dude. Get me up.
You can sit down right here.
Don't touch me.
Yeah, I will put hands on you.
Okay, and I'll break your neck.
Okay, stand up.
Dude, I'll stand up on my own. Get off me. I'll stand up. I have a I'm surgically repaired, dude.
Which elbow?
That one you're grabbing, and that shoulder, and that ankle, and this knee, and that foot.
Quit arguing.
What are you doing to me?
You better quit, man. I'm telling you right now.
Bro, you come get this mother off me, bro.
The deputy explained the situation to a fellow officer, but the suspect kept interrupting, claiming mistreatment and threatening legal action.
All right, so I'm on the traffic stop.
Be quiet.
Be quiet.
I didn't do
I'm on
anything
the traffic
wrong.
Stop. He's on the side of the road just revving his bike motor.
Oh my God, dude.
I told him to stop.
I said I'll bite your finger off and put it in my face, motherfucker.
So
yes, I will. I'm a warrior.
Walking away from me.
Get me the out of these cuffs, dude.
ID. And,
yeah, what is that? Is that a law breaker? No.
Get him on the ground.
Get this rookie away from me, sir.
Okay.
He's been threatening to kill me and my wife.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Get the
Get him ID.
I don't have a weapon. How the he threatened to tase me?
Okay.
He tried to tase me, dude. Are you serious?
Chill out.
Please,
Relax.
man,
We'll settle this here in just a minute, okay?
This kid's not gonna have a job as soon as I stand up. No,
Okay.
please, man, I'm not relaxed. Please, just get me out of the cuffs, dude.
One moment, just stay with me. I'll just run him real quick. Give me 1 second, sir. All right.
So essentially, yeah. So
Sit down.
Can I stand here, please? I'm not. Why is he touching me, dude?
Sit down.
Come on, I didn't.
Just sit down and
Can I
chill.
just kneel here, please? It's more comfortable.
Yes, that's fine.
That's
What
fine.
the just keep touching me for, dude.
All right, relax. All right.
Why is this kid touching me?
Okay. Well, he's not a kid. He's a grown-ass man.
He's a kid.
Okay.
He's a big boy.
No, he's a grown man. Okay.
He's still got mama's behind his ears.
Okay.
Inside the police cruiser, he continued complaining and remained uncooperative as officers explained the charges. Later, they discussed his case further.
Walk him over there.
Why am I going to a dude, why is this kid touching me, bro? I will walk. Why is this kid touching me, sir? You already patted me down, dude.
We're doing it again.
Okay, go ahead, bro. Please help. Please.
No, face that way.
Messenger, please help me with this situation. Please, guys.
Put your chest right there.
Okay, sir. You just broke my bowl, dude.
Oh, your bowl. You can't have it anyways. Doesn't matter. You can't have it in public. Sit down. Put your feet in the car.
I get my shoes?
Put your feet in the car. We're going to get up. Put your feet in the car.
I barely fit in
Put your feet in the car. I can't help it.
Stand there, please. I'm not even arrested.
Put your feet in the
You
car.
didn't even read me my rights at all. Why am I
We
in
don't
a
have to
car?
read you your rights.
What,
Put
to
your feet in the car.
cuffs in a car? Yes,
No,
you do,
we
sir.
don't. Put your feet in the car.
Foster,
Drag him
please,
over there.
Man, please, man. Please. I didn't do the
Sit down.
All right, so what happened?
So I'm on the traffic stop, and all I hear him, and he's just down here going like this, just yelling, revving his bike like super loud.
Okay.
I'm like, what's this guy's problem? I'm trying to deal with the traffic stop.
Yeah.
And all these people, like 3 or 4 people, stop me. Hey, you need to check on him. He looks like he's drunk. He's all over the.
Okay.
Like, so then he just turns in front of the cars here, just makes a U-turn in the middle of the road, real slow. I go to get out with him, and I was like, hey man, what's going on? I was like, you got an ID on you? I said, you're out here revving your engine on here, like, what's going on? He starts walking over this way. And I said, hey, man, you're not going to sit here and walk away. I said, you are detained right now, so I figure out what's going on. I don't have who you are. You look like you're drunk someone ever or anything.
Okay.
So he starts walking this way. I say, hey, don't walk anywhere. I could tell he's about to fight, so I was trying to, like, keep it, like, chill. Well, he kept walking that way. And, like, he's like, don't put your finger on pace. I will bite your finger off and all this. So I was like, okay. So I pulled my taser out and was like, first get on the ground. He gets on the ground.
The deputy's colleagues discussed the earlier threats and the suspect's injury claims and legal threats. They decided to tow his motorcycle as evidence.
He's just acting a fool, though.
So you got out with him because you got flagged down, possibly signal one, see how awful reason get out with him.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
I don't know what his deal is, man. He's like,
let's run him. Is that his bike?
Yeah, I think so.
I would do drug paraphernalia.
I don't know what his deal was. Like, I was trying to be nice to him. He just starts getting all pissed off. Yeah.
So, you do the resisting. It's up to you if you want to do the assault on law enforcement.
I'm not too worried about it. That was the weirdest encounter. He's like, I will bite your finger off. I was like, whoa.
Never take calls like a normal, just a normal fill-in deputy.
While the deputy discussed his charges, the suspect demanded medical attention for his injuries. Suddenly, he became emotional and asked for shoes.
All right, Mr. Joel. Looks like you are going to jail today for resisting an officer without violence.
What? Dude, what?
I got a couple questions. They're not relevant or incriminating.
Dude, I'm suing the f*** out of you. Call my lawyer.
Well, I don't need your lawyer.
Call my lawyer.
So,
call my wife and call my lawyer.
Did you take anything? Do you have any medical necessity to be checked out by EMS right now? Okay, what did you take?
I didn't take any drugs, man.
Okay, so you don't have any medical necessity to be checked
needs,
out?
Though.
Okay, what are your medical needs?
Dude, I need to get these. Can I put the cuffs in front of me, please? I have a blown-out elbow, a blown-out shoulder, a blown-out ankle.
Not right now. If you you can calm down, we can work with you. But I get here, you're all agitated. Y'all had to arrest you. Okay, take a breath. Listen, do you have anybody that can come get your bike? I see it's got a Minnesota tag. Are you down here with any family or anything?
No.
Do you have any ID anywhere on your bike or anything?
I have a picture of it on my phone. Please, can I just get out of these cuffs, please, man?
Well, no, because you're going to jail.
For what? I
resisting
didn't do
an officer without violence. I just told you that.
Resisting? That's a jailable offense?
Yes, it is. It's a misdemeanor in the state of Florida.
Come on, man. You're going to take me to jail for a misdemeanor, bro, please.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I'm a felon, dog.
I take people to jail for...
Please, man, don't do this. I don't have any money to bail out either.
Okay.
How did I resist? I walked away. I wasn't under arrest. I asked him, am I under arrest? He said no. I walked away.
He told you were detained.
For what? For what, dude?
So,
please, man,
I can't talk to you if you're yelling at me.
Dude, why am I in cuffs, bro? I'm a warrior for the country, dude. Take me out in cuffs, please, man.
His behavior shifted from emotional outbursts to threatening the officers. The officers also noted his inconsistent statements about his identity.
Please, you take me out of these cuffs.
Put your feet in the car.
Please take me out of the cuffs.
Listen, you're going to tell the next charge if I got to tell you. Put your feet in the car.
You told me to give me my shoes at least, man.
Put your feet in the car.
Don't touch me, kid.
Listen.
Do not touch me.
I'm not worried about you.
Look at me, brother.
Look at me, absolutely. Brother. I don't care.
You should be.
I absolutely do not care 100%.
Fear should be a real thing in your life right now.
Okay.
Hey, brother, why is this kid touching me?
Would you like to speak to a supervisor?
Yes, please.
Beautiful. I have one here.
What?
Put your feet in the car. Move your knee.
Why am I being a
Move your knee!
What?
He wants to talk to you. He wants to get out of the car. Wants to take his feet out. I keep telling him to put it in there. Okay. He's moving. I just had to push his foot in with my foot. I just shut the door on his knee because he's refusing to move it. He says he works for the government in some capacity. He's got no ID, but he also just told me he's a felon, so...
All right, listen to me, all right?
So right now you're going to go to jail for obstruction, okay? Okay, listen to me. It's a simple resisting charge, okay?
Really? You're gonna take me to jail?
Yes, sir.
For what? I don't have anybody to bail out.
You'll get it.
Got home.
Okay,
dude.
you'll get it.
Got home.
I understand. All right. My question is, do you have anybody who can come get your bike?
No, dude, I don't have anybody. I'm an individual warrior of one, sir. You have no idea who you're detaining right now. Why are you doing this to me? Can I at least put my hands in front of me, please? My shoulder hurts.
Yeah, we can't do that. All right. What's wrong with your shoulder?
Hurts, man. It's blown the out. Both my labrums are torn as and my shoulders can't bend like this, man. Please help me.
I can't take the cuffs off here right now, okay?
Vaughn, I didn't do anything. I didn't touch anyone, Vaughn.
Listen to me.
Even when detained, he remained defiant and chaotic toward the authorities. His threats were ignored as deputies noted his behavioral issues needed immediate attention.
Listen to me, okay?
Vaughn, you take me to jail, then.
Roll this up.
Take me to jail, motherfucker.
Go ahead and hit him up with the assault charge.
Okay. Again?
Yeah. He got everybody this time. So just do the 1 count of assault on LEL, okay, and the resisting charge, okay. He said he doesn't have anybody to come get the bike, so we're going to end up towing that. If I had to guess, he's bipolar because he went from crying to like seriously pissed off like a light switch.
He was with me the whole time.
The suspect was taken to the Santa Rosa County Jail and charged with obstruction without violence and assault on specified personnel. What do you think of how the deputies handled the disturbed suspect? Share your thoughts in our comments below. On October 10th, 2022, a detective from the Sandusky Police Department stopped a vehicle missing a county sticker. What began as a routine inspection quickly escalated. Watch how the situation unfolded as the police questioned the driver.
I'm Detective Cook with Sandusky Police. Reason I stopped you, your tag on the back, you don't have a county sticker anywhere on it.
It fell off?
It must have.
Here, can I check you?
I'll let you at the end of the stop. You got your license on you?
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything illegal in the car? Okay. Would you have a problem if I check?
Yeah. I just got license.
You gotta go somewhere? You in a hurry? Okay. You seem a little nervous to me. And when I first saw you, I see you coming from cops, okay? That's why I'm asking you.
I was down the street the whole time. I was down the street the whole time, wasn't I?
Noting inconsistencies in the driver's statement, another officer arrived with a canine unit to search the vehicle. The driver resisted, leading to a tense exchange.
How you doing, sir? I'm a canine officer, so typically how we do this is we have everyone in the car step out.
Yeah.
So if you could just exit the vehicle.
I just said I didn't want to get searched.
With what she's got going on, we can run the dog still. So
why?
She's gonna have to explain that to you, but you're gonna have to.
She's gonna run a dog, or
what's that?
You said run what?
Run a dog around your car.
Yeah, she can do that.
Yeah, you're gonna step out of the car though.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm cool.
You're gonna get additional charges.
Let me explain to you. I conducted a traffic stop, okay? I explained to you, you seemed nervous. You lied about where you're coming from.
No, I didn't. Were you following me this whole time?
Listen, all he's asking you to do is step out. He's gonna run the dog. If the dog does
run
not,
the dog while I'm in the car. What's the big deal?
We just
about
want you
that?
to step out because he
I don't
can't.
want to. It's raining. It's cold. Just run the dog.
Right under this, you have to get out so he can run the dog, sir.
I am in here.
You're
just
gonna
run the dog.
You're gonna escalate this further.
I don't even know why this is happening.
We're just asking you to step out of the car.
Tell him to get his car away from me. I'm keeping my keys though.
That's fine. He's getting out.
You don't touch me.
Right over there with him. At the back of the car. All right. Right over there at the back of the car with him in the grass.
I'm not in
You're not getting in the. You're not going to stay in the street. You're going to stand right in here in the grass.
Reluctantly, he exited the car as officers began their search. He claimed their actions were unnecessary, but the officers affirmed their legal right to proceed.
Leave me alone. Go take my car.
All right, just relax. Do you have anything on you that's going to get in trouble?
No, I just got my phone and my keys, man.
Okay. You care if we check real quick?
No, fine.
Okay, he's going to just check it real fast, okay?
Just for our safety. I ain't got on me. I'll turn my pockets out too. You arresting me for something? You said
no one's arresting you.
No, I'm saying I'm being. For what?
When we ask you to step out, we have every legal right to ask anybody for any reason to step out.
But why do y'all got to step out the car if you got the dog?
So he can run the dog. He can't run the dog.
Okay, but is that a legal right that you have to run the dog? That I had to step out while you run the dog?
He has to. You have to.
So
step
that's
out.
a legal right that I had to step out while you run the dog. That's legal.
Yes, he has to.
You tell me that's a law. That's a law. That's really a law.
We can control movements of any occupant in a vehicle,
yes.
sir. It's case.
We can ask anybody in the vehicle to step out. If there was a passenger, we could ask them to step out.
Do I have to? If it's probable cause. You can probably call first baseball. Okay? That don't even make no sense, bro. Can y'all back away from me, though? I don't like, I'm making me anxious.
Just relax.
As the canine searched, the dog alerted the officers. When asked to cooperate, the suspect became combative. Perceived as a threat, the police restrained him.
The canine officer is going to explain it to you.
So what now happened? That's not probably
So now,
shit though. Still, he just
now,
peanut butter.
Listen, he hit on your car. I'll let the canine officer explain it to you. But we are going to search the car based on him alerting to it.
No, you're not about to search my car. We are. Everything on BPS. I do not care about
all you have to do is unlock the car. We're going to search.
Because you can't arrest me for a smell.
If you fail to unlock the car, then
you are going to get arrested.
You can't arrest me for nothing on BPS. Stop playing with me.
So you can either hand over your keys,
alright,
or you can go in cuffs for obstructing.
Okay, hold on. I got a deal for y'all then. If I hand over my keys, let me get my money. I'll take it to jail with me then. If I do for something.
How much money is in the car?
I don't know, like $20.
$20? Yeah, you can have $20.
Right, no, I'm not over here. Y'all on BPS. Get away from me on everything.
Peace, please.
On everything. Get away. No, I'm not.
You're escalating this further. We need another.
Alright, I give up.
Put your hands on your back.
I got him. I'm done, y'all. I'm done. Don't put your hands on me no more.
During the struggle, an officer's finger was broken, adding to the driver's charges. The driver insisted it wasn't his fault and questioned the arrest's legality.
Why you do that?
I don't know. Alright, I'm good. I'll cooperate now. I'm a cooperative person. I'm good.
Right?
I'm good.
Now you have a felonious assault.
For what? I didn't
broke
hit
his
him.
finger. You broke his
hit
finger.
him. God.
His finger's broke, bro.
He punched me in my face. I punched you.
We have him in custody. 92 needs a squad for a broken finger.
You know I was holding my keys the whole time.
You were resisting and fighting.
I know. I wasn't fighting. I was holding myself together.
Mason broke his finger.
I resisted. I didn't hit him though. I got food.
Where is keys at?
Meanwhile, the officer's injuries were assessed by colleagues. Later, the driver expressed frustration and intended to apologize to the officer.
You alright? It was broke. Oh, it happened when we tackled him.
You want me to lock my car up and you need an ambulance?
Or do you just want to go to the hospital?
Just take me to the hospital.
I just want to talk to him. He don't got to say nothing. Can you hear me from there?
I don't think he wants to talk to you.
Look. Hey, look. God honest, yeah, I'm resisting arrest, but I'm not dumb enough to hit an officer. I didn't hit him. I was holding my keys the whole time trying to run away. I wouldn't do nothing like that.
I don't know why you still have your phone.
Can I just talk to my mom?
I'll give you your phone.
All right, cool, bro. You ain't got to do all that now. But I do want to apologize to the dude that broke his finger, though. If he is listening to me.
The paramedics decided to take the officer to the hospital for further evaluation. The suspect continued to plead for a chance to apologize.
What do you guys think, broken or just dislocated?
It looks more dislocated, and the fact that you can't move it, like you just feel like something's stopping you from moving it. Yeah. Does it hurt?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Can I write him a letter?
What's that?
Is it possible if I write him a letter from jail?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, like I'd send it to the police department. You probably gonna throw this.
Before taking him to the police station, the officers had the suspect's injuries treated and fully evaluated at the hospital.
I'm cool. Trust me. I'm good. Okay. I'm not tripping here. I'm good. I don't even have no confrontation besides that on my record. I'm usually a cool person. I'm just tired of jail. Hey, get on the phone.
He can go to 3. I'll take
Hey. Looking cute.
Alright, what's going on here?
See, I don't like to, I was gonna say something. I was resisting arrest. Dude punched me in the face, he kneed me in the stomach. I scraped my knee up. Okay. No, that's the deal.
Who's the dude that?
Y'all can tell me.
Officer.
The driver was taken into custody by the Sandusky County Jail and charged with resisting an officer and failing to comply with a vehicle inspection. What was the driver hiding, and why did he resist the vehicle inspection? We want to hear your thoughts below. On April 26, 2023, Columbia County deputies initiated a traffic stop on a speeding vehicle in a school zone. The driver didn't comply and sped off. Let's see what happened when they finally pulled him over.
Let that window down. How many places did you have to pull over there?
Sir?
Do you not see?
I wanted to get out of the way of school traffic.
You see these parking spots on the side of the road? All these places you could have pulled in on the side. What's the speed limit coming through that school zone there?
I noticed the school zone, that's why I stopped. So that's why as soon as I was...
You slowed down once you got in the school zone.
Once I saw the lights, I slowed down to the school zone limit. Wasn't paying attention at first about the school zone. And then when I see the lights where the school zone starts, I was like, oh,
yeah.
And I stopped real quickly.
Yeah. Let me explain something to you. Once I even observed you at the rate of speed you were coming, that's why I slowed down and stopped right there, because I was coming to get you. You slowed down, because not only that, I watched your speed decrease once you got in there, and then the front of your vehicle dipped down.
I was
stopping. All right, so time out. Hear me out. Just hear me out. I'm not even going to get into it with you, man.
Yeah.
My thing is, speed limit fine is double.
After the driver's explanation, the deputy reminded him that he must yield to law enforcement and highlighted the legal consequences. The driver gave a vague response when asked for his license.
If somebody was walking there, sir, again, you're not listening to me, sir. All I'm trying to do is explain something to you. I can give you a verbal warning, or I can cite you for speeding in the school zone and failure to yield for the emergency vehicle. Your excuses as to why you were trying to get out of traffic, school traffic, you were way out of school traffic, which is why I hit my horn and signal and do like this to pull over to the right. I'm not trying to be that guy with you, but when you're getting pulled over, we're trying to explain something to you. The thing to do is to listen. You're coming through that school zone speeding. You had every opportunity to pull over to every entrance, every driveway. You always pull to the right for emergency vehicle. There is no excuse for that. Do you have a valid driver's license?
I do, and unfortunately, I can't find it.
What does the Florida law state about having your driver's license only while you're operating a motor vehicle in the state of Florida?
You have to have it.
Yeah. So not having that, not having proof of insurance, not having registration, all those are citations.
I have proof of insurance.
And your registration?
And registration.
Okay. Have you had anything to drink, any medications, anything of that nature?
I have medications at night, and then last night we had some drinks.
Are you under influence right now? The only reason I'm asking that because your speech is somewhat slurred.
I don't think so.
What do you mean you don't think so?
I don't believe I could be. I had drinks at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Do me a favor and step out of the vehicle.
Suspicious of the driver, the deputy ordered him to exit the vehicle. The driver refused, citing a disability and discomfort.
I have many ailments and things. Can I please not do this right now?
Hey, all right, so you're not going to get out of the vehicle?
Can I please not?
Listen, you're making things a lot difficult than it needs to be right now.
No, sir. No, sir. I don't want to...
I've given you a lawful order.
Are you going to pull me out of the car for what?
I've asked you 2 times to step out of the vehicle. I've asked you, now I'm asking you a 3rd time.
Can you not call extra people?
You're not listening.
I will come out. I will...
11-4, what's your 10-20?
Can you please not bring a lot of people
Listen.
on me? And you know what? You pulling on me is not nice.
Have I pulled on you?
You got your hand on a weapon.
Yeah, because you're failing to comply with a lawful order I've given you.
My hands are right here.
Yeah, now they are. Now they are.
They've been here. Okay.
I've asked you 3 times to step out of the car and you refuse to do it.
I want to step out of the car. Will you not?
But I've asked you 3 times to do it. Now we're past that.
Will you please not? No, man.
Hey, stop. Stay in the car. Hey, stay in the car. No, you don't want to listen. I'm not playing this game with you right now.
The sergeant was briefed. The driver, Paul, cited medical conditions for his non-compliance. As he resisted, the police tased him to gain control.
He's coming through the school zone a little bit too fast and hit his brakes, and when I let him up, it took him forever to pull over. He wouldn't stop. His speech is slurred, so I asked him if he'd been drinking, and he said his last drink was upbound 2, and I've asked him to step out of the car 3 times, and he's refused to get out all 3 times.
So here's what you're going to do. We're going to open your door. You're going to step out of the car. You're going to do what the deputy asked you to do so that nobody gets hurt. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, I absolutely do, but can you do me one thing?
Sure.
Can I just go to my house? It's right there.
We'll work on that. If you do not step out of the car, I'm going to take you out of the car. Do you understand what I'm telling you?
Goodness.
Get out of the car now.
You're progressing this a lot.
Hey. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. What the f***?
Why is this?
You're taser pulling stuff out.
I'm not fighting you at all.
No.
Man.
Stop. Stop it, man.
Stop
it. Oh, stop. What am I being detained? Why am I being detained?
Once handcuffed, he questioned his arrest, citing his veteran status and his disability for sympathy. Feeling ignored, he accused the officers of grave threats.
Stop it! Please! Let go of the officer, Thomas, please! My shoulder! Ah! I got a disability! I'm disabled. I'm 80%. Stop it! Can you loosen it, please? Please, I got a bad disability. I got a bad disability. I'm 80% disabled. Please. Please. My shoulder. Yeah, my shoulder, please. Let that loose. I'm not gonna hurt you. I promise you. I fought for this country. I will not hurt you. I protect this country. Let me out of here, please. Nope. It hurts too bad. Not happening. Please, thank you, please. Be quiet. Be quiet. Just be quiet. Am I a target to you? Did I hurt you?
Despite his pleas, they questioned his military service and expressed surprise at his non-compliance with officers.
Can you double cuff me, please? I have a shoulder injury from the war. Can I please get double cuffed? Please. Give me 1 second, man. My shoulder is on fire right now. You're injuring me further right now. You don't understand this, but you are injuring me further. Please. It's really bad. I'm a veteran. I don't know why you have so many people here. I cannot deal with this. What?
You called them all here.
No, I did not.
You did. All you have to do is get out of the car.
Can you please loosen this stuff? I cannot. I have physical injury from war. Please let me.
What branch of the service were you in?
I'm the Army.
You sure don't carry yourself with a military?
I wasn't expecting to be surprised by somebody tasing me after like one request to get out of the car.
Paul was taken into custody by the Columbia County Detention Facility. He was charged with driving under the influence and resisting an officer. Should military service and disability exempt someone from obeying the law? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're looking for more bodycam videos, look no further. Stay right here to keep on watching.